Hello, friends. I'm Kush Khandelwal, and this is Ageless Athlete. A few years ago, I started asking questions that would not leave me alone. Why do some people keep pushing mentally, physically, spiritually long after others burn out or break down? What does it really mean to age well when you still crave movement, meaning, and mastery? This show is my search for answers. Each week, I talk to elite athletes, everyday adventurers, and pioneering researchers who are stretching the limits of what's possible across age, injury, illness, and self doubt. You will hear hard won lessons, untold stories, and science backed strategies for building a body and mindset that lasts. For those of us joining for the first time, welcome to the show. For the rest, thank you for joining us again. Time is our most valuable asset, and I deeply appreciate you giving me your time today.
Imagine you are 75. The world expects you to slow down, step aside, wind things down. But instead, you are lacing up for your next trail run, diving into open water for a 10-mile swim, or just for fun, enrolling in medical school. Yes, at 75, going back to medical school because you know what? The quest for learning, it doesn't stop. Today's guests are not here to defy aging, they are redefining it. Joan Weisberg-Beyerlein and Doug Beyerlein are not famous Olympians or social media influencers, but they may be two of the most unassuming and extraordinary people you will meet. Joan is a former trauma nurse, recovering alcoholic, open water swimmer, and lifelong learner who did not get into endurance sports until she was older. Doug is an ultra runner who didn't discover he was an athlete until his 30s and has now completed over 70 ultra marathons and 67 road marathons with more medals than wall space. Together, they have faced addiction, injury, overtraining, back surgeries, and cultural expectations. And together, they have built a relationship and a lifestyle around curiosity, joy, and relentless motion. In this episode, we talk about starting over again and again at any age, what it means to listen to your body without giving up on your goals, how they met later in life and fell in love while climbing Mount Rainier on their first date, and then why strength training, introspection, and laughter matter more than PRs. The mindset shift from competition to connection and why it's so freeing. We also talk about the magic of open water, the discipline of aging well, and what it feels like to be out of the box 75-year-olds who have to educate their own doctors. I absolutely loved this chat. I was smiling and giggling and really just in rapture while I was listening to their stories. And yeah, the conversation goes beyond athletics. I mean, my favorite part just might be the love and the bond these guys have for each other. So, by the end of this chat, you may find yourself questioning what's possible in your life, physically, emotionally, and relationally. If you're battling burnout, or you're navigating a reinvention, or wondering what your next chapter might hold, you might like this one. So, yeah, this one is for you. Where are you guys right now, and what did you have for breakfast, John and Doug?
I usually don't eat before I swim. I swim sort of semi-fasted, but I do had to take fuel with me to the pool or the lake, wherever I'm going. And I use Scratch Nutrition. And then I use gels when I'm swimming. Distance swimmers have a schedule of feedings. So I swim fasted for the first hour. And then when I'm training for distance, I take a feed, which is like a sip of fluid or a gel every 23 or 25 minutes. And the same is true out in the lake. And then I come home and I'm hungry. I could eat the table. So I have a bunch of rice cakes with a bunch of almond butter and jelly. And I had a bar in between, a protein bar in between the pool and the lake today.
And just to clarify, we're in Mill Creek, Washington.
Oh, we're at home, yeah.
And I run around the neighborhood here, but I don't eat anything before I go out for my morning run. And then I come back. If it's a short run, I'll have a bowl of Cheerios and a glass of chocolate milk. If it's a long run where it's, I'm out there for like 3 hours, and I'll just simply skip breakfast and go straight to lunch.
John, sorry, but Doug's breakfast, it just sounds more fun. Cheerios and chocolate milk. Is that something you've been doing for a long time, Doug?
Yeah, about 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, he was doing that even before me.
Fair enough. I usually also ask people to tell us who they are. And both of you have lived such rich and, shall I say, almost unexpected lives. And I thought I would actually do something different. I would ask each of you to describe, and Doug, can I ask you to go first and describe to us who is John?
Well, Joan is the real brains behind the outfit. I mean, I just basically do what she comes up with. She does a ton of research, and she's always looking online to find out the latest, greatest about nutrition, about exercise, about shoes, all that sort of stuff. And then I just, take advantage of all that information. It makes my life really easy. And so, I just basically go out there and run and have a good time while she's slaving away at the computer trying to find more information to help us become better athletes.
That's great. I'll make the question more specific. Let's say both of you were at this, I don't know, cocktail party or some event where you didn't know other people, and you were asked to introduce yourself. So, Doug, how would you introduce John?
Well, once again, I mean, Joan's brilliant. I mean, she just knows all sorts of stuff. I mean, she comes from a medical background. She was a nurse, but she really should have been a doctor. And so she just has all this information about how the body works and all the things that you can do to make, your body work better. And so that's just a huge component of why we're able to do what we do.
But how would you describe me as a person?
Well, you're got a ton of energy. You go nonstop.
I don't suffer fools gladly. Don't forget that part.
You don't suffer fools gladly. That's true. She doesn't like people getting in her personal space. You'd never actually find us at a cocktail party.
Well, plus I've been sober for 42 years, so that would be a no.
And Joan, how would you describe Doug?
I think Doug is the brains behind the operation in certain respects. Doug is the rudder to the boat. I'm the boat, which is like full of information and ideas and energy, and Doug is the rudder. First of all, if you can imagine, our first date was climbing up to Camp Muir on Mount Rainier. That was our first date. And what I really loved about Doug was that he planned the thing out. Not that I hadn't climbed mountains before, which I had, but he was so organized about it. And he just knows a lot of stuff. So when I have deep political questions, not that I haven't been a political activist all my life, but when I have deep political questions like history stuff, Doug just fills it in and knows all this stuff. And he's the steadying force when I'm rocky or feeling discouraged about my training or whatever. He's the rudder, which is amazing. He's the smart rudder. The other thing is he's really he's just very stable. He also likes his family. pretty much. That's how it was at the beginning, not so much now, but I did not like my family. The other thing is that Doug always shows up and does what he says he's going to do. So Doug says, I'm going to run a marathon tomorrow, and he will show up and do it. I will be like, oh, no, I can't. And he's like, okay, I'm going to do that. And when he does it, he becomes this other person. He becomes calmly focused. He probably would not tell you he's calm, but he's just calmly focused and present for what he's doing. For all my ADD and attention jumping all over the map, he's focused. And the showing up always and doing what he says he's going to do is really inspiring. I mean, it has really inspired me a lot. He's also a much kinder person than I am. We'll be running along, and there are people, we run together. There are people, I don't suffer fools gladly, and I really don't like people in my personal space unless I know them. I love people I love in my personal space, but strangers, not so much. That comes from my nursing background, but we can get into that later. But we'll be running along, and I'll be like, okay, get that out of my way. And Doug's like, hi, good morning. How are you doing? And I'm not that. He is that. He's kind to our neighbors. I am not kind to our neighbors. Doug looks for the good stuff in people, and this is the trauma nurse in me. I'm looking for what's wrong, and I got to fix it. This person is this, and I better do something about that. And Doug is very accepting of people. I'm much less so. He's very accepting, which is just amazing. And he's accepting of what's happening in the big picture. Not that we love what's happening in the big world right now, but he's like, okay, and so now we're going to do this, and then we can think about this, and then we can think about that. And those are all things that really steady my not loopy, but my jitteriness on the planet. He also doesn't swear, and I swear a lot.
Awesome.
We have complementary skills.
What?
Yeah.
Complementary skills. We have complementary skills.
Complementary skills, and obviously, clearly, a lot of healthy respect and love for each other. One other thing I noted, if I may, is that you guys are in the same house, but chose different rooms because you have, let's say, different styles with which you attend online meetings.
Yeah.
And you both seem fine about it. And I'm wondering if that's perhaps another developed skill you have on maintaining this beautiful partnership is respecting the other person's needs and skills and adjusting gladly.
Well, I'd be really foolish if I tried to tell Joan what to do. So I've just learned to trust her. She knows what works best for her, and let her go with it, and it works fine.
And the same is true with Doug. Yeah, but I think that's evolved over time. I don't think that was how it was at the beginning, if I'm remembering correctly. We were much more critical of each other, and now it's. I have endless respect for Doug, and to tell Doug how to do running, which I have to modify that by saying I do offer suggestions about his posture and about that kind of stuff, which he doesn't pay attention to. So, and I give him suggestions about running shoes, which he does pay attention to. But telling him when to run and who to run with, not. And he's learned to. One of the greatest things that's happened lately is that when I go out to the lake for a long time and I have to refill my feeds out there, Doug has been just like on the spot. Yeah, I don't think it was intuitive for him. He's not as intuitive as I am, but now he is. I mean, it's just like completely changed. And as we progress in our relationship, I think that mutual respect has grown. What do you think? Don't.
Well, definitely. I mean, obviously what you do is extremely important to you, and I support that. So, whatever I can do to help, I'm willing to do.
Friends, it means a lot that you're here. I pour a ton of heart into the show. The research, the interviews, the editing, it's all me, trying to share stories that matter. If Ageless Athlete has ever made you feel seen, inspired you, or just kept you company on a long drive, or better, over a run or a bike ride, I would be so grateful if you considered supporting it. Even a small amount helps keep it going, helps keep bringing the show to you for free. You can chip in at buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. Again, buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. You can find the link on the show notes as well. Thank you for listening and for being part of this.
His phraseology is really different from mine, as you can tell. I mean, he's an engineer. I would elaborate on that, and that was just what I said, that I think you're now very intuitive about what I need, and you're really there in this big way, in this big-hearted way. Now,
Well, I take a lot of notes.
I write down instructions.
Okay, well, I love it. I love seeing the lights in your eyes go off, when you talk about each other. Here's another question on the same line. From what I gathered, your paths kept crossing for years. You were racing bikes together, you were maybe even running in the same events, but you didn't actually meet until much later. Like, how did you guys meet? And was there a moment when you, after you met, when you looked at each other and you were like, where have you been, all my life?
You want to tell them, Joan, or do you want me to?
We could both share. Yeah. You can
Make up a
start.
good story now.
No, I think the bike racing bit was in Berkeley. We both lived in the Bay Area a really long time. And I was racing for the Berkeley Bike Club back in the days with Bob Roll before he became an announcer and weirder than he already was. And Greg LeMond was racing with us. So I was not the best at bike racing, but I would go to races, and Doug remembers that I gave him a bike wheel. He flatted and I gave him a wheel, and then he gave it back to me at the end, but we never introduced ourselves to each other. And then, I don't know, years passed, right? I mean, we just came to Washington and I stayed.
I mean, like Joan said, we both lived in the Bay Area. She raced for one bike club and I raced for another. So we were in two different clubs, and I raced against, obviously not her because the men raced separately from the women, but against the men that she talked about. And so we knew all the same people. And so when we finally did get together, we realized we had all these acquaintances and friends in common that we didn't realize. But we didn't actually meet in person until about a good 10 years later. And that was through Match.com. And so we met online, and she was living in Fresno. I was living up just north of Seattle. And so, we weren't even anywhere close to each other, but
he claims I led him on. He claims I led him on Match.com.
Well, she wouldn't tell me where she lived, so I didn't know that she wasn't local until it was too late. And then she ended up moving up here, so it all worked out.
I was working at Highland at the trauma center in Oakland for years, and I got recruited to open up an ER in Fresno. Kaiser was opening up a new ER, and so I moved to Fresno, which was just horrendous. But yeah, we met on Match.com. My friends told me that there were axe murderers on Match.com. This is in 1999, 2000. That only axe murderers were on at Match.com, and I shouldn't answer any ads. But I did. There was something really, I don't know what it was. You said you bike raced or something.
Well, I basically put in all these criteria that I was looking for someone who knew how to do, trail running, bicycle racing, all these things that I figured would eliminate 99% of the potential candidates. And Joan was the one left.
Sometimes being like specific and eliminatory, I guess, pays. Maybe you guys have learned that over the years on how to weed out the people who don't fit. But you can have all these things line up on paper, the activities, the hobbies, but then, in person, maybe you still may not make the best fit. So obviously Joan, fit the bill on paper, but what was it about Joan that after meeting her, after spending time with her, you realized, you know what, she is absolutely the one for me?
Well, I mean, as she mentioned earlier, the first date we had, I took her out on this test mountain climb where we climbed up Mount Rainier, not all the way to the top, but up halfway up to a place called Camp Muir, which is at 10,000 feet.
Across an ice field.
And then we had to descend in the dark because we started too late. And the fact that she would, put up with all that and not get totally freaked out and, was up for that sort of adventure. I mean, that was a good sign that, she was comfortable with being out there in the mountains doing crazy things. So, and obviously we have many other, adventures together to give us a chance to get to know each other. And so, you just build on that.
I wanted to add that I think that underlying it, which I wouldn't have been able to define it until recently, was that we both pursue excellence in stuff. And the way this guy, Brad Stulberg, defines it is meaningful involvement in activities or in mindful involvement in meaningful activities or activities that are meaningful to you that are in line with your values. So it was the alignment of our values, I think, and the alignment with the idea of excellence. I think that was is the glue that holds us together a lot.
That sounded like an epic first date. I think the kind of date which can be, polarizing in its outcome. Like you will either never want to see each other again, or let's say in your case, a better outcome. You realize that this is somebody who I can share a lot of adventures with, just like this one. I wanted to maybe dig a little bit deeper into your stories. And Joan, your story of, may I say, reinvention blew me away, maybe not once, but twice. You didn't start running until 30 and you came from, let's say,
dysfunctional.
You started off, yeah. You started off where, you had to make some huge life changes. And then you did that again at, I believe, the age of 50, where you retool yourself again. So I'm curious, maybe going back to when you were 30, what did you change and how did you change? And maybe something that might help someone who's going through a similar path in life.
Oh, good question. I was really a fat kid. I came from a really dysfunctional background and a confusing background. My parents are both Jewish and born in 1949. So the specter of Zionism was really high, and they're coming off the World War II experience, and my father was in the Navy. So they were very Jewish, but not practicing. They were not Orthodox or conservative. And so, and that means just going to show on high holidays kind of thing. Although the huge contradictions, they spoke Yiddish at the dinner table so that my brother and I would not understand what they were saying. And as I look back on it, I wonder why I never asked them to teach me Yiddish. I thought that would have been interesting, but they didn't. And their main focus with both my brother and myself was education, that was going to be the key to unlocking the anti-Semitism on the planet somehow. If we got educated, we would be okay. My brother is definitely the more educated, in the traditional sense, person, Yale and Harvard Law School. And I went to huge contradictions in life, which led to where I'm getting to. Okay, I was a very fat kid, so I weighed 225, 250 pounds until I was 20 something, and I was smoking and drinking. That was a pattern that I learned from my father. And the contradiction in that household was you didn't say anything about dad's drinking, and he was violent also. But the contradiction was that they'd say Jews are not violent, and we don't drink, and yet, hello. So I was confused, and they sent me to very mainstream Protestant girls' prep school, where we went to church every day. And I would come home on holidays and they'd wonder why I didn't want to go to temple or what was going on. So it was extremely confusing. It was profoundly confusing. And then I went to a very Protestant Ivy League college, same deal. And when I went, there were no boys in the college until my junior year. We had to wear skirts to class. And I was yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. We spoke French at the dining table. And I had wanted to go to medical school. I was really good in science in high school. And they assigned me to take a class in embryology, which I had no interest, none at all. And I really did badly. And my advisor called me in the office. Doug has heard this story 1,000 times. And my advisor said to me, this very laced up shoes lady, here's the deal with you. You're not doing very well in this class. And that will screw up your chances of getting into medical school because, number one, they're not taking very many women. This was in 1967. And they're not taking very many Jews. That was one of many really profound anti-Semitic experiences. So she said, I would change my major if I were you. So that sort of opened the door for me to become very political. So I was lined up with a lot of socialists and organizations, very, very radical, trying to organize the proletariat, which obviously did not work out very well. And I started gaining a lot of weight, got really, really fat then. I was smoking and drinking heavily. This organization, the socialist organization, didn't allow drugs. So along the way with that, and I was gainfully unemployed. Well, I was employed, but underemployed because I was trying to be part of the proletariat. Obviously, that didn't work out well. I really got disillusioned with the way this socialist organization was being run. It was very top down. Talk about oligarchs. It was a socialist oligarchy, if you will. There was a guy on top and the rest of us were insignificant individuals. And it felt that way. And I was nearing 30 and underemployed. I was living in Boston, and I happened to watch the Boston Marathon one day. I realized that my life was going to be very short unless I'd made some major life changes. So the first life change was quitting smoking. And like the day afterwards, I decided to take up running. So I ran maybe a quarter of a mile and thought I was going to die. But I kept at it in my persistent, determined fashion. 9 months after that, I banded the Boston Marathon, which was amazing. It was an amazing experience, amazing. Then I decided I really needed to up my game, and I did nursing school. However, I did nursing school in a really unconventional way.
Let me ask you this way. I don't know if there's a simple answer here, but it sounds like you did this double whammy. You managed to quit smoking.
3 packs a day, quit smoking.
Oh my goodness. And then you also got in shape. And just one of those two things would be so difficult. And then on top of that, you started training avidly to become a long distance runner. Could you think back to maybe one single lifestyle change, like something that you did, which maybe just brought all of those things together and put you on that path?
What propelled me into quitting smoking was I was afraid I was going to die. I did not want to get lung cancer and die. And I wanted to do something better. I think that's the best way to answer it. I wanted to be better and to do something better and to contribute something. I didn't feel that I was contributing anything by trying to convert people into beliefs that they didn't believe, but I wanted to do something better. Help people sounds so trite, but also the medical thing is really in me. I didn't want to go to medical school, though I got accepted at Stanford PA school. I didn't want to do that particularly. So I didn't think it was moving forward. I thought it was kind of settling, actually, for a very long time into my nursing career. I thought I settled for a very long time till I got to Highland.
Well, yes, 3 packs a day does not sound like it would have allowed you this longevity and this career that you have had. And Doug, in your case, may I say, you were a late bloomer of a different kind. Like you described yourself, you were like this super fast kid, but somehow you didn't think that was cool. And you took up chess instead. But then you got back into doing athletics. So what is the narrative arc there?
Hello, friends. Just a quick break. This is not an ad. If you have been enjoying these conversations, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. It is where I go deeper, sharing stories, reflections, and behind the scenes insights that don't always make it into the podcast. I write about what I'm learning from elite athletes and how to stay ageless in body and mind. If you have ever wanted a thoughtful, inspiring read that ties it all together, training, aging, mindset, and awe, you will love this. You can find the link in the show notes or just head to agelessathlete.co. Again, www.agelessathlete.co, that is, to sign up. And yeah, just a couple of emails a month, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Absolutely no spam ever. Okay, back to the show.
Well, growing up, I always had this idea that to be an athlete, you had to be, a football, basketball, or baseball player. I mean, that's kind of the standard idea of what athletes are. And just because you can run fast doesn't really mean that you're an athlete. And yet I didn't realize that, if you actually train, you can, accomplish all sorts of things. I mean, I was a fast kid in my gym class, but it didn't mean that I was fast enough to be on the track team or anything like that. As you mentioned, I mean, one of the things that I was good at was playing chess. And so, I was president of our high school chess club, but, that doesn't have nearly as much status as being the captain of the football team. So, it was not exactly a way to, show off my athletic skills or attract girls. So I never really considered myself an athlete. I just kind of slowly, went in that direction. When I got out of college, I got a job where I could ride my bike to work every day. And I did that. And then I found out that there were people who actually went out and did like 50-mile or 100-mile bike rides in a single day. And I got into that. And then that led me into bicycle racing. So it was sort of like, slowly, but without any real conscious decision, I got more and more into athletics and then started running because that was a good way to do some cross training. And, that just kind of opened up new doors for opportunities also. So it was never as much of a conscious decision like in Joan's case. It was more like just, kind of going in the direction of what looked the most fun.
Can I add something here? I got to say,
Please.
Doug's bike racing, Doug is a phenomenal bike racer. He was phenomenal. Unfortunately, he was racing with like Bob Rowland, Greg LeMond, and those guys. So, but he's really strong at it, and probably still would be today if he got on your bike. But it wasn't just he sort of took up bike racing. He raced on the track with some distinction. He raced on the road. So he will be humbled till the end. He's much more accomplished than he will lead you to believe.
Well, obviously, because you were racing against people who would go on to become multiple title holders at races like the Tour de France. So you certainly chose talented cohort to race with, and not just, let's say, the quality of your performances, but maybe just the sheer consistency, Doug. Like, you have raced, I think, an ultra marathon or a marathon like every year for like, I don't know how many decades. There are very, very few athletes, even the world's best ones, who have had that kind of consistency. And I think at some point, yeah, you've raced like you said, you've raced like the 100-milers, and then you've also tried sprinting. At some point, you found this sweet spot for yourself. And what is that sweet spot in athletics for you? And how did you stumble upon it?
Well, you're right. I mean, I've done a little of everything. I mean, I've run on the track, I've run on the road, I've run on trails, and I enjoy all of them, and I still do all of them. And, you know, each one has its unique features and challenges. They don't have the foot speed that really good sprinters have. I mean, my abilities on the track are more in the line of 800 meters and 1500 meters, where, you know, I can go fairly fast, fairly far. And so that works out best for me. When it comes to road racing, then it's the same sort of situation. In the road races, they're typically anywhere from 5K up to a marathon. You know, I'm not that good at the 5K because, once again, there are guys faster than me. But at about the half marathon, you know, I'm pretty good. That's sort of where I can do my best. And then when it comes to ultra marathons, just going out there and having a good time. And I mean, you know, whatever you do is an accomplishment. So I still enjoy going out there and doing like 50K trail races. And quite honestly, there aren't many guys my age. I mean, I'm 74, headed on to 75 here in a couple of months, but who still go out and do that sort of thing. It's just, you know, for a lot of people, that's just beyond what they want to do these days. So, you know, the consistency, like you mentioned, is I think, key. I mean, I have this goal of running a marathon every year till I'm 100. And, you know, I ran my first marathon in 1984 and have done at least one a year ever since. So, you know, so far, so good. We'll see how this works out long term. But at least so far, I've been able to keep that up. So that's, you know, that's kind of my long-term goal.
I love that, Doug. And yeah, I'm like, you know, it's such an obvious question to ask you guys, so I have to ask it, which is you, both of you are doing these things, you know, well into your 70s, where so many of your, you know, so many of the people you used to maybe train with and race with are no longer doing that with you. And beyond maybe just sheer desire, is there something else that you have learned or incorporated about your thoughts on identity and maybe even longevity that is keeping you guys still in the game with maybe the same kind of fire that you've had when you first got into it?
For me, I didn't find swimming till I was 65, but it was like the two trains merging to one. Like I had tried a whole bunch of other things, and I got in the water, and for some reason, it was the right time. And I suddenly realized that I was not so bad at swimming as I was. I'm very self-critical. So I don't think I'm a very good bike racer. I know I'm not the greatest runner, although I really love running still. But I also thought that it might be a good idea to hire a coach. So what do? I hired Trent Grimsey, the world record holder in the English Channel. And he sent me workouts and we would talk. And before I knew it, he invited me to swim the English Channel on a relay team. And that was, talk about getting out of comfort zone. I mean, that was, beyond anything that I had even thought about. I had done a couple of triathlons, short distance swimming, and Doug reminded me of the first time I got into a lake with this group that swims in Lake Washington, and I was absolutely terrified. I was in tears. I was terrified. I hated it. And somehow something changed that I just fell in love with it. It was where I found peace for the first time. I wasn't competing with someone else. I wasn't feeling bad that I was off the back of the pack. in a bike race, and I wasn't racing with anybody. So for me, it's the getting out of my comfort zone on a regular basis, which is like every day in the pool. The English Channel was one of the best experiences of life. I never thought I could do it. And believe me, when I was in that 60-degree water and my hand was touching jellyfish for half the time, I thought, just get me the hell out of here. But the doing something that I thought I couldn't do, really challenging myself in that way deeply, was and is really inspiring. So that continues to be the motivation. And now I've grown to, I mean, what got me through the pandemic, swimming. I mean, that pool is probably a saltwater pool by now. I cried so much in it, but that's the, you know, I can do anything in the pool. I can cry. I can think crappy thoughts. I can be pissed off at the person next to me, and no one knows what I'm thinking. I'm just swimming along, and it's peace.
Joan, you had, so how old were you when you swam the English Channel?
65.
Okay, so you were 65 when you swam the channel.
With a relay team. Yeah.
With a relay team. And what I find remarkable in that story is that you decided you wanted to excel at the sport. And instead of maybe just looking for a coach in your normal swimming environment, in your community, you went and reached out to this world champion. And this world champ, like, they agreed to coach you as well. So, I mean, I don't know, like, if it's common for somebody who's won like world medals to have, you know, some random person reach out to them. And were they already impressed with, let's say, other things you had done? Why did they honestly just take on this person from the other side of the world as a student?
Let me tell you this. So 10 years later, I wanted to really improve my stroke. So the interesting thing is that swimming is very technical. It's a very, very technical sport. And I mean, you can just go in and swim like crazy, but to be proficient at it, it takes a ton of practice. Doug is always amazed at how much you need to swim to be able to improve. But it takes a lot of swimming to improve in it. And you have to, I always find it very interesting, and I'll get to your question, that swimming attracts very rigid people, which is it is so odd, because here we are, very rigid and have to have it my way people in this fluid environment. And you have to surrender. You have to surrender to what's happening, because if you fight with it, you'll get bitten back. You won't make it to the other end of the pool. If you're fighting to breathe, whatever. And so learning the technique so that you can, and all the coaches say, be one with the water. I have no idea what that means, sort of, until now, somewhat. But it's a concept that it's a feeling you can't get to until you're more proficient, because you have to trust. I mean, things that were such an anathema to me: trust, surrender, be in the moment. So what do I do at age 75? I saw a video of Brent Hayden, who was the Canadian bronze medalist in the 100 meters. Tons of swim videos at the Olympics here. Tons of swim videos. I get tons of them. Clothing videos and swim videos are the name of my social media. But so what do? I contact Brent Hayden. And he lives in Vancouver, which is like 2.5 hours from me. And I said, can I work with you? And told him a little bit of my story. And he said, sure. So I went up to Canada. I've been up a couple of times, and I sent him video of my stuff. And I would have to say that my stroke has improved by 50% since working with him just a little while ago. So I love being around people who are skillful at what they do, and who make a very difficult thing look easy, like Doug when he's running. That it just looks like, and that I'm always such a struggleful person. Got to get this, and but making things easier than they seem to be, without a struggle, without being pissed off, without being having to have a result, is a great gift that Brent Hayden gave me in swimming.
Joan didn't really
I can.
say it, but what she's really good at is just calling up people who she doesn't know and just asking them for help. And I mean, she'll do that for all sorts of things, and people respond positively.
That's how I met Mark Reniker. I'm a relentless learner. A little aside, because I still wanted to go to medical school, I found out that Harvard was offering first-year didactic online. So I'm enrolled at Harvard taking first-year didactic online. And that's sort of interesting, medical school. And I take classes relentlessly.
You're actually going to school to become a doctor right now?
No. I'm
Different.
just doing the first-year didactic online.
What is that? What is first year didactic?
Oh, it's advanced. It's not nursing school physiology, but medical school physiology, medical school anatomy. They did a dissection class online, interactive dissection class, genetics, things like that. So
Sorry, I'm just getting fascinated here. So you are, I didn't even know you could do a dissection class online. Like, John, are you literally on your kitchen table, like recording yourself cutting a frog on video? Is that what Doug has to see occasionally?
Doug would not like to see that. And secondly, I've seen more bodies splayed open at Highland, the county hospital. I have to tell you that I actually splayed open bodies because that was the days before. That was back in the day when they needed nurses to do stuff. It was like being in Vietnam. It was like a war zone. So I've cut people's chests open. I've seen it live. And done things that most nurses will never do in their career, and would get fired for if they ever tried to do it now. So yeah, but that's how I met Mark Reniker. I was taking a class in healthcare advocacy because I love to teach and I love give back. I want to share my knowledge that was really freely given to me. I mean, I've worked with people at the county hospital who are so generous with their knowledge with me. Bob Daly, who is the founder of emergency medicine, shared. I mean, he's just amazingly generous. So if I'm not generous, who am I? So yeah, I realized that Mark Reniker was the founder of health. You talked to them, healthcare advocacy. So who would I call? I mean, I called him and I said, "Hey, I'm in this program. I'm getting certified. Can I come and work with you?" And he said, "Sure." So we went down to San Francisco. I worked with Mark a little bit. And then he invited me to a conference of all doctors. I was like the only nurse there. I felt really square peg, round hole kind of thing, but met amazing, amazing people there who are so outside the box in medicine.
Sure.
That are just blow your hat off. I mean, just open my eyes to thoughts and thinking about disease and medicine in a new way. It was amazing. So yeah, I worked with Mark Reniker a little and still know him. So anyway, I work with Brent Hayden, who's I love being around people who are smart.
To continue on, Doug. So again, as we were chatting, you discovered, let's say, your powers a little bit later, and then you dove right in. And yeah, I'm also wondering, like, if you are able to maybe point to maybe some things that you are doing or some things that you have that have allowed you this kind of consistency with running, including the fact that you hope to continue doing that for a long time. Are there some habits that you care to share that we can learn from?
Well, Joan and I have different theories on this, but I'll give you my theory or my philosophy when it comes to running. Basically, my story is that my success is because of my consistency, and my consistency is because I'm basically lazy. And what I mean by that is that, in particular, when it comes to running and especially ultramarathons, there's this real tendency to go out there when people first start doing it and they fall in love with it. And it's understandable. You go out running on all these beautiful trails and you go to beautiful places and you meet all these interesting people. And it's something that you just want to do more and more of. But people, a lot of runners get to the point where they just want to do more and more of it without letting their bodies rest. And the end result of that is that you can keep that up for a while, maybe even, a number of years, that ultimately it catches up with you. And what happens is that most runners eventually quit running because of the fact that they get injured or they have some sort of chronic problem that is made worse by their running, whether it's related to their heart or, they have to have a hip replacement or a knee replacement, stuff like that. And oftentimes that's what ends their running career. By basically doing less, I give my body a chance to recover more often. And so, for example, I always take one day off a week from running. And so that I give my body the opportunity to rest and recover during that period. And also I typically, during the year, I'll take typically a whole month off, not running all together, but just doing anything intense. And once again, it's just to allow my batteries to recharge. And so, I'm not saying that I never get injured, because I have been injured on occasion from overuse type of activities, but by basically not overstressing my body, it's allowed me to continue doing this for many more years than most of the people that I've run with. I mean, there's a lot of runners out there who I ran with 20, 30, 40 years ago who are not running today simply because their bodies are not capable of doing it anymore. I think this works for me. It may not work for everybody, but this approach certainly works for me and allows me to keep on doing it at the level that is sustainable. And I think that's key for me.
You have figured out over time what that balance is between obviously continuing to push yourself, which you do, and how to temper that with rest and cross training. Like, how do you arrive at that particular quantity of running days, miles, what have you, where you realized, okay, you know what, if I do this, then I might be overdoing it? Was that trial and error, maybe a different type of intervention? Because there are a lot of people out there, who want to continue to do their sport. But at some point, the body breaks down. And maybe it's because some of the rest of us have not figured out what that point of temperance is.
Well, one thing that certainly worked in my favor, although I never thought of it specifically when I was doing it, was the fact that, especially when I was into bicycle racing, I was competing against guys who were basically out there training every day, and obviously they were better at it than I was, but I was working full time. I mean, I have a career as a civil engineer, and so I had to fit my training around my work schedule. And so that limited how much I could do. And so when it came to first cycling and then running, it was how to fit it in among everything else that I had going on in my life. So I couldn't just devote myself to one thing. I had to figure out how to, be able to do everything at a reasonable level. And it wasn't particularly a conscious decision. It was just a decision based upon, available time and energy. I was certainly doing a lot more racing when I was younger than I do now. But as I've gotten older, and I have learned from the mistakes that I've made. So there's been times when I've gone out and tried to do too much and gotten injured in the process. And then I basically had to readjust and basically, build back up again. And it's much harder to do that than it is to, try to find that consistent level that you can maintain yourself at. I mean, there's a very fine line between being well-trained and being injured. And typically people cross that line without realizing it. And then obviously you then spend a lot of time recovering from those injuries. So my goal is to not get too close to that line. So oftentimes I'll go into something slightly undertrained, where it's like, okay, well, I did a certain amount of training that I knew was necessary for whatever I was training for. Let's say a marathon, I got up to 60 miles a week, while other people are probably running 80 miles or 100 miles a week. But I know that if I tried to go to that additional amount of training, that was not going to work for me in the long term. I mean, it might help for one particular race, but ultimately, your body, especially as you get older, just can't handle that volume. And, I've seen that happen to other runners. So I know that that's a limitation. So I try to not only learn from my mistakes, but other people's also.
Are you a meticulous note taker? How do you build upon that body of knowledge, which allows you to like kind of fine tune what you said? Because I do know that from like, let's say, other sports from the world of climbing, seems like some of the best rock climbers out there, they are the ones who don't get injured, right? Because if you get injured, then you can't climb or you do your sport. And they have also learned to kind of find that fringe where they are training and existing right below the cusp of injury. So you kind of push. But then they have learned that, okay, if they go and maybe spend that extra hour training or climbing, they will probably go and rupture their ringed finger pulley. So how have you learned to kind of dial that in, Doug?
Well, first of all, I don't keep track of my training miles. So I don't write down every training run that I do. Now I have a watch that tracks all that stuff. So if I really want to see it, I can. But, I don't write down every run that I do. That also allows me to exaggerate how many miles I run a week. So there's a fringe benefit there. It's also just listening to my body. I mean, there are days when my body tells me, okay, I maybe, have a 10-mile run plan, but the body just does not feel like that's going to work. So I readjust. I mean, part of my background of being an engineer is that I tend to analyze everything that I deal with. And so, I'm basically adapting my training based upon the feedback that I'm getting from my body and how I feel, and then plan accordingly.
Got it. And sounds like, even if you're not taking tedious notes of your mileage, you have learned to just develop some sort of like, sensitivity to how your body reacts, how your system reacts to the amount of miles to a particular run, and then do more or less of that. Anything else specifically you're doing to avert injury outside of just tempering time on the road?
I also go to the gym and do a variety of exercises and workouts that promote flexibility and mobility and strength. A lot of things that Joan has taught me. So, once again, I rely upon her knowledge. And so that, I recognize that, there's some things that you need to work on that you will not get just from running. So other types of physical activities will help keep the body strong. And there's a test that I do where if I want to, if I don't want to go to the gym, all I have to do is go to the local supermarket and look at some of the other people walking around my age and realize that I don't want to look like them in terms of being bent over and shuffling along and, having a hard time of it. So, it makes that gym workout, a lot more productive when I realize what the alternative is.
And what about eating and sleeping? Hello.
Oh yeah, I believe in plenty of sleep and naps also. So
and eating.
Any excuse is a good one.
And eating well. We changed our diet.
Yeah, Joan makes sure that we eat well. If I was left on my own, who knows what, I'd end up eating probably Cheerios 3 times a day. So, so Joan keeps that.
Cheerios and
happening.
almond poppy seed muffins.
Oh yeah, those are good too.
Mm. So what are the changes that you guys have brought into your diet?
Well, Joan's the expert on that.
Well, so we didn't have a good stove until recently, but we got a new stove. I also thought that I didn't feel our diet was contributing to improvement very much. I didn't feel like we were getting good quality protein. So I switched us to Mediterranean diet and I learned how to cook. I never knew how to cook before. So I learned how to cook, which has been really fun, actually. That's a whole new thing. I have one of these crazy things too. This is where Doug and I sort of diverge in our opinions, but I was really getting attached to the statistics on that watch until I started questioning, like, how does this watch know how I sleep? It doesn't. So I learned how to detach from that. However, that said, we do go to bed really early. We get
in the afternoon.
Well, you nap. I don't nap. He naps. But we go to bed early and wake up early. We don't stay up late. We don't.
How long ago did you learn how to cook? Or you made that change to
I'd say a
the
few
new
months.
diet?
Well, the diet change was about 6 months, but I just learned to cook, learning to cook starting like 4 months ago.
Oh, no, it's been longer than that, Joan. I
Has it?
mean, even with our own stove, you were cooking, just not as easily.
Doug is not cooking, but he's learning. So that's the great thing. So now that he's learning to cook, we cook together, which is kind of fun.
I find, I'm blown away. Like you guys are like in your mid-70s, and you were not cooking until I don't know, like what? Sorry, but dumb question. But like, what have you been eating over the decade? I mean, you still have been performing at a high level.
Oh, I didn't say we were eating that badly, but I
Okay.
really thought that we could improve some things. So, for example, we started taking creatine and we're doing some collagen. We do a lot of supplementation based on stuff I learned from Mark, who's a big fan of supplementation. And I learned a lot from him. And through the years, I've corresponded with him and learned even more from him. So that's really helpful. We were eating okay. I do less snacking of junk now. I've really limited my junk and sugar. But I think it's all of that put together. I wouldn't say that any one thing contributes to our longevity. I think it's the consistency that Doug talked about. And swimming is a little bit different. So I have a little bit different take on that than Doug, and our diet and our general. I do some meditation practice. I'm not very good at it, but I do some breathing stuff. Doug naps. I breathe. We have a regular schedule, which we don't veer off of very much. Do you agree with that, Doug?
Yeah. Well, our schedule's pretty standard every day. I mean, we have different activities, but it's pretty focused on what our athletic interests are.
I think with swimming, the difference between Doug and myself on that topic is that consistency is definitely the piece, is showing up. And for me, the values that I embrace are, well, first of all, the love of the sport. And if I ever stopped loving it, I would not do it. And improvement, among many other values that I have, the relationships that I have with people at the pool and at the lake and all that. But improvement. The problem and the difference between me and Doug is that I am more of a subjectively based person. So if you ask me to gauge what my feelings are about my workouts, I've had this discussion with Brent Hayden a lot, who also has had his ups and downs. You hear a lot about swimmers getting depressed. I mean, swimming's a lonely sport. Watching a black line or watching algae at the bottom of the lake is like, not engaging. And engagement is one of my values. So it sort of takes me away from that. I'm just engaged with myself and my thoughts. And that can be a very tricky, slippery slope. So I have a coach, not Brent, but someone else. And I run things by him. So if I write him and say, I really felt crappy about this workout, I didn't feel like I did. He's like, okay, show me what you did and that. And he'll put me back on track. But I don't have as easy a time of saying I feel tired. Although yesterday, I have to tell you, confess, I took a whole day off and felt horrible. I walked, which I thought was like and I'm not as good as resting, although I sleep longer than Doug does, I think. But my coach writes, we periodize my workouts. So right now I'm building for a 10-mile swim. So the pedals to the metal. And it's hard.
Yeah.
And if I come home and say I'm tired, Doug's response would be, well, rest. And I'm like, I got to put the pedal to the metal for the rest of this week, and then I get to taper. So I have a schedule.
Joan, if we were to go to your coach and ask them, how are they training you the same or differently? How does your plan compare to other students your coach has?
He doesn't have any 75-year-old students. It's like our doctor.
That's what I'm saying.
Who does not have any. I spend a lot of time educating my doctor about things. So the stuff I learned from Renneker and that conference, I send my doctor research papers about stuff. There's, but anyway, I lost the question, but I don't remember the question.
I was just asking
but
if
Joan is always looking for more information, and who's always studying what's the latest, greatest stuff available.
maybe this is a good segue, to this thing that I've been thinking about. Joan, when you wrote to me, you said something that made me chuckle. And you said that you are out of the box 75-year-olds. And you have to educate your primary care physician on how to deal with you guys. So, first of all, what does out of the box mean to you both?
To me, it means I want to contextualize this. So I go to my doctor's office for a physical. And mind you, these days, a physical, he hasn't laid a hand on me ever. Much I love you, Jacob, but he hasn't laid a hand on me. And it's a physical where he has eyes on me. But they ask me these ridiculous questions. I mean, they know me. He knows me. He's known me for 10 years now. Do you need handrails to get out of the shower? Okay, ask me something meaningful. I do not need handrails to get out of the goddamn shower. Have you fallen lately? Yeah, I've tripped on the trail a bunch. Just ridiculous questions. Are you incontinent? Yes, sometimes when I'm running, I need to go off the trail and poop. It happens. Do you forget things? Yes, sometimes I forget where I put my keys. But then they punch that into an AI algorithm and come up with, this is what a 75-year-old is. And I say, we are not that. We are not that. I'm me, Doug is Doug, and you've got to see us for who we are. And this is what medicine is. It's an art. It's not an algorithm. And people say to me, one of my least favorite things that people say is, you look really good for your age. I'm running the other day. I had my shirt off and just my sports bra on and shorts. And this woman stops me and says, God, you look really good for your age. And I said, how old do you think I am? And she said, 55. And I said, honey bun, I'm 75. And how I look is irrelevant. It's what I'm doing. And she says, I want to look like you. I said, work for it. I work for it. It isn't that I sit in my house and watch YouTube videos on how to get plastic surgery. It's working for it. It's consistency. So marginalizing the elderly, I find really distasteful. And it's a real mission of mine to stop that. Because people internalize that in their head. They think 75 means you should be X, which I think is part of why we're doing as well as we're doing, is that if you ask me how old I think I am, I have no idea. I don't think about it. And so I find it really distressing that people actually internalize how they think X age is supposed to behave. And I think that's an untruthful place to be. And society does that.
Yes. No, that is, even at the age of 47, sometimes, people, I go to the doctor or whatnot, and they keep telling me, actually, it's funny. I was recently testing out this CGM, this continuous glucose device, and they make you punch in some information about your age and height, like, so just some basic biomarker, just some basic PI. And I was doing that, and it wouldn't matter like what I ate. I would still stay in that green zone. And I just feel like even at my age, like they have compensated based on maybe some some data group that they have, that a person of my age, should just get this amount of SWAT. And I'm guessing for you guys, that's even wider, right? So maybe the same question for you, Doug. Like, what is your take? Okay, how are you redefining aging on your terms?
Well, I agree with Joan in the sense that, I don't think my age is, a limiting factor. I kind of sometimes chuckle when I think about, I remember when my grandparents were 75 years old, and obviously that was a much different time than today. And even my father, who died at 81, he obviously didn't do the sort of things that we're doing. It just shows you what people are capable of if you, take age out as a determining factor. I trained with an 80-year-old runner who's a phenomenal runner. I mean, he's literally just as fast as I am on shorter distance runs. And he's 80 years old, and I want to be like him when I grow up. So, we can always look at these role models, these people out there who are even older than us, and see the amazing things that they're doing and recognize that, we're capable of doing those sort of things also. And so that's the sort of thing that helps me, continue on doing these things, even on days when I feel like, I'd rather just, stay in bed. But I know that if I get up and get out there and do these things, what the benefits are.
Yeah.
And obviously surrounding yourself with, let's say, other overachievers, that's probably goes a long way. And I can sense that to some degree, maybe there's also some frustration to how society kind of labels us based on this age number, or maybe unlearn with what the script is and how you are supposed to live your life.
Well, basically, we're pioneers. We're out there basically blazing a trail for the next generation to show them what's possible. When you're a pioneer, you don't have much to follow. You are the one who's being followed. So, that's both good and bad. But I think it's encouraging. I'm always, just somewhat like Joan, I'm always kind of amazed when I talk to younger runners, especially when I'm out there running ultramarathons. And, I'm the only one who's in my age group. So, they're mostly people in their 30s and 40s, and they just kind of assume I'm probably, in my 50s because I'm a little bit older than them. But they have really no idea that I'm still capable of doing these things at my age. And, I always use that to my benefit.
But that's why your podcast is so important. It is so important. Bob Becker, who just did Badwater in under 48 hours. Yeah.
45 hours. Yeah.
45 hours. That's why your podcast is so resonant with me. It's so important to get this out there that we're not marginalized. We're not living on the edge. We're ordinary people doing good stuff on all levels in athletics and improving life on the planet. But your podcast really, really highlights that for people. And I want everybody to listen to your podcast and know that not all people over 60 are going to be walking around with a walker and going to assisted living.
Well, I started this podcast, honestly, as a gift to myself, to learn from others, people such as yourself. Like, what is it that I need to start doing or stop doing? What is it that can inspire me? So you guys are obviously pioneers, but being pioneers can also become, exhausting, right? Like always having to blaze a new trail. Besides the couple of people, maybe you mentioned, Doug, your friend from running, and maybe even people like Bob Becker. Like, where are you guys finding inspiration, finding a path when sometimes things do get tiring for you, things get exhausting? Sometimes, yes, the heaviness of like the society, which is trying to force us down a certain script, that gets a little onerous.
There are a couple of women who I know. A 75-year-old woman in Maine, whose name I'm forgetting, Pat Charette, who is 75 and really is an amazing swimmer. So she goes out and just knocks off 20 miles somewhere. I mean, she's amazing, and she's also a nurse. So I met her at a conference, and she got into swimming because she lost a son in the water and took up swimming, and now she's swum everything. Charlotte Bryn, who I mentioned to you, who I'm going to swim with in Vermont, 57 years old. She's someone who has inspired me unbelievably. She attempted the English Channel and failed as a word swimmers throw around a lot, but didn't complete 4 times. And she had the guts to go back and face that baby again and completed it on the 5th time. And she wrote about it, and that anybody who has the guts to cop to their failure and then show up, and it's hard to describe the English Channel. It's just vast. It's this vast, but to look at that and say, okay, I'm going to try this again with a different mindset. It was her mindset that changed. I'm going to make friends with this channel. I'm not going to fight with it. And I'm just going to see what happens out here. So it's people like that. There's a woman named Ariana Lauderman. She's not older. She's younger. She overcame melanoma and is an Ironman. And her insights are so profound, and how her mind works is so profound. I'm built for this. I can do it. She doesn't fear failure. She gathers evidence. So the wisdom that pops from this young girl's mouth is really inspirational. And the challenge, for me, what resonates is, wow, okay, what happens when I go beyond my perceived limits? And I have a lot of perceived limits. I can do this, can I do this? Blah, blah, blah. And can I do this? And is this worthwhile? Does this resonate with me in this meaningful way? Is this resonating with my values? And anybody who can answer those questions, Mark Renneker, 75 years old, he surfs Mavericks, for God's sakes. I mean, those people show me that you can do more than you think you can. And I don't mean more like you have to go out and swim 20,000 miles, but you can do more than your mind is telling you. Your mind is your biggest limiter.
And I think also by being a trailblazer, that means that we also get to make our own trails.
Yeah.
So while we get to see what other people are doing, we also get to go out there and do what we want. I mean, you don't have to follow anybody else's footsteps if that's not what we want to do. I mean, Bob Becker running Badwater is phenomenal. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But I have zero desire to ever run Badwater because it's just way too hard. So, but I admire people who can do that. I'll do what I want to do.
Lisa Batchen Smith Batchen is another person.
Yeah.
What we met her. Doug did her ultra in Wyoming, but
Ran Teton 100.
Not only, I mean, and people who do more than just the sport. The sport is a metaphor for something bigger. If you don't see that, I don't know where your head is. But that she has this foundation that gives water to children in Africa, for heaven's sakes. I mean, I met her children; they're lovely. There's a purpose for this. There's a purpose for this. Going beyond your perceived limits is a life lesson. This is what we do. We don't just sit in our house and twiddle our thumbs and watch reruns of Rocky and Bullwinkle. We actually do something. I teach nursing students sometimes. I work with old folks in the neighborhood and try to help them walk better, be bigger, be bigger. In this world where people are just so smallified and looking at their damn telephones all day, do something bigger.
The one thing that Lisa said when she spoke on the show, which has stayed with me, was how this purpose keeps her going, even when she does, things which seem impossible. When every part of you wants to stop and you just keep pushing because you feel like you're doing this for somebody else. You guys do similar things. And I think that it's almost like a toolkit. Like, it's almost like, I think people are doing things that you guys are doing, like you develop this as this tangible tool to do something for something that is beyond you. And what is it that you guys harness? You talk about a couple of the ways you give back. Is that how you keep pushing past what might be your perceived limits, or is it something different or maybe deeper?
I'll tell you one word is gratitude. I go to that lake this morning at 8:00 and say, I am really grateful that I have this opportunity, number one, to be retired at this point, and I don't have to be at work in a half an hour, but I have this opportunity to be in this magnificent place. Gratitude. Doug talks about that a lot too. He wrote an article about people belly aching during races. And I offered him up the word gratitude. We're grateful for these opportunities. And what do we learn from these opportunities?
Doug, a slightly contrarian question for you.
Oh, but
you have spent so much of your life since you discovered your talent for endurance sports, out on the track, out on the race course, out on your bike. You given so much to these activities. And I'm wondering, is there something else you could have done with your time? What makes those activities so meaningful to you as part of a life well lived?
You want an answer?
I sure do.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a question I'm not sure I can answer. I mean, obviously, as we go through life, we make decisions not knowing where those decisions will lead us. And, I never made a conscious decision really to end up where I am today. I'm not complaining at all. I've talked about gratitude. I'm amazingly grateful for the fact that I ended up with Joan and having the ability and the opportunity to do what I get to do. I mean, I'm one of, 1/10 of 1% of the population who gets to do that. And I could have easily have made other decisions along the way and ended up, being one of those people that I look at when I go to the supermarket, who's shuffling along, trying to do the grocery shopping, and they're having a hard time just walking. So, and I've had other acquaintances who are probably through no fault of their own, they're not alive today. They just didn't even make it to this age. The fact that we get to do these things is amazing. Just that we're here and able to provide this sort of this ability to show others what's possible. It's something that is a real gift that we're given. I don't know how things would have worked out differently, but I'm certainly happy for how they did work out.
The other thing which I feel is remarkable, you guys have these careers outside of your sports. Again, not to bring the age up, but most people at 75, they are either retired, most people, or are maybe contemplating. You guys are still out there. You're working. Doug, you as an engineer. Joan, you are, you're taking dissection classes. So do you think it's your practice of sport, your physical practice, that fuels your quest for learning? and for continuing to see growth? Or do you think it's the other way around? It's your curiosity and your desire to grow that pushes you then on the swimming pool or on the racetrack.
I think they're interrelated. I think for me, it's the passion for growth and learning stuff. So things that irritate me are things that I want to learn about, and I exclude certain things from that. But AI, for example, I have no idea what that's about, but yet I prefer opinions about it all the time. So I'm taking a class in AI to figure out what it is that pisses me off about it, or the dangers of it, particularly when it applies to medicine and going down that road. And that curiosity, I'm endlessly curious about things. I'm endlessly curious. I go outside and drive to the pool. I'm curious about why people drive the way they do. I'm curious about everything. I'm endlessly curious. And I'm curious about how to improve my swim stroke and how it's the curiosity that drives the whole thing for me. The endless interest in the world around me and my curiosity about it. I'm very curious about penguins. I want to learn about penguins. I love being curious. I love that childlike quality of being curious. And I think that's a product of not being allowed to be curious maybe when I was a kid, that I had to be very focused. So now I get to be curious about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I approach it from a little bit different perspective in that I think that to age well, put it that way, or just to have a well-rounded life, you have to be physically active, mentally active, and socially active. Those are sort of the three legs of the stool that you sit on. And so, I mean, being physically active obviously is a sport. Being mentally active, like Joan says, is being curious about stuff and going out there and learning about new things and keeping your mind sharp. And then, being socially active is not isolating yourself, but being out there dealing or working with others. And so all three of those things are important. I mean, a lot of people just do one or two of those things and neglect the others. And I think that's a real mistake.
We also both read a lot. I want to add that.
Yeah,
and
that's part of being curious.
Yeah. I love that so much. I mean, I just feel like the day we stop being curious, the day we stop growing. And the day we stop growing, the closer we are, the closer we get to not living. And where do you think society goes wrong? Like, there's this idea of, I think we talk about balance a lot, right? But we don't practice balance. So where is it that we go wrong as a species when it comes to finding this balance in our lives that allow us to stay curious and stay in a state of growth? Doesn't matter your age.
You want my opinion on that? I don't know even where to start on that question.
Well, while Joan is thinking up an answer, I'll just throw in that I think, people get so focused on typically money.
Yeah.
It drives all their decision making. And so people make decisions, that they're going to do whatever. And a lot of times people don't have a lot of choice, I understand. But at the same time, you have to recognize that there's trade-offs. I mean, as an engineer, I could have gone to work for a big engineering firm and made twice as much money as I did when I started my own engineering firm. And, but I would not have been twice as happy. In fact, it would have been probably just the opposite. Being able to do what I want was more important than making a lot of money. And so I think, that's the trade-off that I was willing to make. Some people don't have that choice, I recognize, but if you do, I think that's a well-worth trade-off. And I'm sure Joan has her own ideas on the subject.
No, I agree. I also think that society as a whole is focused on money, and I think the commodification of life, that we need X things that somehow the end game is happiness. That there's such a thing as happiness and ease. That life should be easy and happy. I don't believe that, and I think people don't pay attention. People are not mindful. They're just automaton, or they're walking around like this with a 3x6 instrument in front of their face. They're also lulled into somnolence and obedience by all the messaging we receive. And you have to have a really close-in boundary not to receive these messages that we receive. I think another thing that we, Doug and I both do, is we really restrict our phone time, our screen time. I really have grown to hate social media. I hate it. I just delete stuff except for penguins, swimming, and a couple of other things. It's just because I have to filter out most of which I think is bullshit. And we're lulled into believing things that are not true. And we don't seek to find out whether this information is true or not true. We're just content to absorb it like a sponge. And then we regurgitate it at whatever's passing by. And, it's the reason we have the situation we're in now. The leaders of this country are totally corrupt and bought off by money. And that's what the next generation of kids is seeing. And that's absolutely reprehensible, that it's okay to behave in reprehensible manner because the leaders of our country are behaving in reprehensible manners on both sides of the aisle, which is not to say I'm not socialist, but it's reprehensible.
Right. I mean, I think you guys are also drawing like this sharp line between knowledge and curiosity, and maybe just the mindless absorption of, knowledge, like not knowledge, let's say just information. Like, I think there is that sharp difference, and I will have to agree that so much of what we read online, like, I don't think it really sticks, because I think it just gets replaced by the next deluge of images, pictures, sounds.
I agree.
A slightly different kind of question. You guys are highly accomplished and deeply thoughtful. At the same time, you don't take yourselves too seriously, I think. You guys are funny, and
I take Joan very seriously.
yeah, of course, you better do. But what does the role humor play in longevity?
We actually do watch reruns of Rocky and Bullwinkle. We watch these funny shows sometimes. We have Doug watches more TV than I do, but I watch for an hour a night, and we watch these British crime dramas. They're hilarious, and we make fun of a lot of stuff. So we have a sort of innate sense of humor. I think we make fun of a lot of stuff. Is that true, Doug? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's true.
So I have a few fun questions before we end. Let's talk about the way you train. And you obviously bring different strengths, complementary strengths to the table. So maybe just some rapid fire ones. Actually, first of all, like, do you train together at all? Like, I know one of you is focused on swimming right now. One of you is focused on running. Like, where do you intersect?
No, truth, Doug does not know how to swim. So there you go. There's that.
Okay.
We don't train together, we run together. But we go to the gym together.
Okay. Who is more likely to skip stretching? Okay.
I do it religiously in the evening.
Okay. Doug didn't even want to say anything. He just raised his hand for those of you not watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
Who is more disciplined with strength work?
Joan is. Joan's more disciplined on everything. Let's just get it right to the point.
It's critical in swimming. If you're not doing shoulder work and leg work, you're toasted.
what has perhaps one habit that each of you have picked up in the last few years that has had the most dramatic impact? And I guess you mentioned learning how to cook and changing your diet. So maybe that's one of them. Anything else?
Eating a frozen yogurt every now and then with toppings, sprinkles. Right, Doug does not do sprinkles.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm anti-sprinkle.
I don't know why, but
No, and so John, the question was, has most dramatically shifted your life? So is that frozen yogurt with sprinkles?
being a little less judgmental, I think, has been the most dramatic change for me. I think the meditation practice has helped. And also some of the mind shifts that have happened with studying pain stuff, allowing a little more space between my thoughts and my mouth and my thoughts and my judgment.
And
I still have the
what
thoughts.
about you, Doug?
Well, I think I've been perfect for quite a while now, so no need to change.
Right on. Okay. And then maybe a different fun question, which is, in recent memory, what's been the best use of an amount close to $100 been for both of you?
What that we spent it on?
Yeah.
Oh, what did I just? Gels for my trip to Vermont. What'd you spend
Okay.
$100 on? Yeah, $100 won't buy you a pair of shoes, though. It's a problem.
Yeah, you got to up your game to maybe $1,000. That would be.
Yeah, right.
What about you, Doug?
What have you spent $100 on?
Well, the only thing I buy are shoes and gels for my running. So I don't know what else I would need.
I spend money on flowers for the house. Oh, we bought a new mattress topper.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yes. The goal to keep improving one's sleep.
Definitely.
I was going to say our Hyper Ice device is nice.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah. Yes. A necessity.
The hyperized device.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this question, which is, do you think your best years are behind you or ahead of you?
No. I'm the fittest I've ever been, and I hope looking forward to getting fitter. I love it. And I'm looking forward to expanding the 6 pounds of tofu that dwells in here
Yeah.
and working on it and growing.
And what about you, Doug?
I think my best year was age 5. I really had a lot of potential then and unlimited, abilities. But
So sarcastic.
Well, just closing off, one beautiful thing that I see about you guys is that, you guys didn't meet as teenagers, but you guys found each other and have built this beautiful life together. And I think maybe this is like one tangential, I don't know, call it lesson, call it a gentle, no, I should turn that around. Do you guys think that you would have accomplished as much in the last couple of decades if you had not found each other?
Oh, no.
no, definitely not.
No. He's taught me so much. I mean, just by example. I'm mouthy, as you know, and
Joan set such high standards. It really is up my game. I have to be a lot more, serious about how I do things than I would have been otherwise.
But I'm working on my perfectionism so that it doesn't become dogma. And my greatest issue, perfectionism. I work on that a lot.
Can I throw in one last question?
Yeah.
You guys have so much to say on the subject. Any final words or any thoughts that didn't come up that you wanted to talk about when it comes to being ageless?
For me, letting go of perfectionism and being flexible and allowing and surrendering to what's going to happen and being fully present for it.
And age is not a limit. I mean, if you want to do something, go do it. Don't blame age for why you can or cannot do something.
That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Ageless Athlete Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this show just as much as I enjoyed creating and producing it. Whether you are an athlete looking to push your limits or someone striving to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle as you age, there is always something new to learn. From Ageless Athlete, we bring you a fresh episode each and every week. If you liked what you heard, we would love it if you would take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an update. And if you really liked what you heard, please leave us a review, crush those 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. It helps us reach more people who are passionate about staying strong and resilient, no matter their age. Don't forget to visit our website and leave your email so I can send you occasional insights, stories, and tips to keep you inspired and motivated on your journey. You can also follow us on Instagram at Ageless Athlete Podcast and on YouTube at Ageless Athlete Podcast as well for even more great content. All of these links are available on the show notes for this episode. This show is entirely produced by me, Kush Khandelwal, based out of California with the help of my trusted adventure pup Roger. Until next time, keep challenging yourself. Keep pushing those limits. Stay mentally and physically fit. Continue doing what you love to do. And my friends, stay ageless. Friends, this is not an ad. This is just a quick message to those amongst us who are listening to Ageless Athlete podcast for the first time. I would love it if you would hit subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcast or Spotify or Stitcher or Overcast or what have you. We bring you stories and routines and other inspiration from elites in the world of the best outdoor sports. In each episode, you will find how these athletes stay connected to the outdoors, maintain peak performance, and continue to thrive as they age. I encourage you to look through Brad episodes and listen to a couple and see if they resonate. And then, come back next week. We release an episode each week. And I am really inspired to bring you some of the best stories from the world of the outdoors. Okay, back to the show.